my channel. I wanted to go ahead and do another tier ranking video. This is always really fun to do, and so I decided I was going to do a thriller tier recommendation video where I go over all the thrillers that I have read and I rank them based on my favorites and my thoughts on them. Some of these you will find are more, they teeter the line between thriller and mystery, and some of them might be a little more lit fic. I had a little bit of a hard time deciding on some of them, whether I wanted to consider them a thriller or not. So I went ahead and included them, but you can take it with a grain of salt if you don't think that it is considered a thriller. So I am typically not a thriller person. I don't read them often, but I have read quite a few this year because I went on a Riley Sager journey before I met him. And so that is the reason for so many thrillers this year. So I have right here different categories that I've decided to do. One is kept me on the edge of my seat the whole time. One is I loved it, but it had some slow parts. One is it was a good time, but it wasn't very thrilling. The other one is had a lot of holes in the storyline. And lastly, I just didn't enjoy it at all, or I DNF. So I'm going to go ahead and here are all the books that I have read. This is just the list that I have on Goodreads. Doesn't mean that I haven't read other thrillers, but this is the ones that I actually have ratings and have kept track on. So the first one would be Ruth Ware's One Perfect Couple. I would definitely say this kept me on the edge of my seat the entire time. Absolutely love that book. Would recommend it to anyone, especially during the summer. It gave me Survivor vibes and Bachelor vibes, and it was just so good. Also, it kind of reminded me of Lost. And then I have a Riley Sager, which, by the way, I have read every single one of his books except for The House Across the Lake. So I can help you figure out which Riley Sagers that I would recommend reading. And Lock Every Door is definitely top of the list. Now, I would say that this book is one of my favorites of Riley Sager's. However, I'm going to put it here. So this is not like in order of like stars necessarily. So keep that in mind. I did that intentionally because there are going to be some 5 stars that I'm going to tell you still have some slow parts. So this was a 5-star for me, and it is one of my favorites of his, but it did have some slow parts. So I'm going to leave it there. Behind Closed Doors, absolutely loved it. Highly recommend you read this one. It is eerie, and I was on the edge of my seat and read it in one day, which does not happen often for me. The next book that I have is The Last Time I Lied by Riley Sager. I would say that this one is really great. I gave it 5 stars, but I thought it did have some slow parts. But slow parts to me do not necessarily mean that I'm not going to love it and not give it a 5-star, just so you know. Because I do think sometimes there's something to be said about a thriller building up. So A Good Girl's Guide to Murder 100% kept me on the edge of my seat the whole time. Recommend the audio. That is the only way to read this book because it is a phenomenal podcast audiobook. There are all kinds of like effects on it. The next one that I read was The Last Word. Let me tell you, this is one of my all-time favorite thrillers that I've ever read. And it made the top 23 list last year. It made the top 23 books of all the books I've read in the last year. So one of my favorites. Highly recommend the audio. It is incredible. A lot of people say this is super creepy. I didn't think it was creepy, in my opinion. I just thought it was a good time. And I was on the edge of my seat the whole time, and I had no clue what was going to happen. No clue. It was utter chaos. Then, of course, I loved The Only One Left. There are some slow parts, but I adored this book. Adored it. So Riley Sager has a theme, as you can tell, where it has some slow moments, but that is not really a problem for me. All of these were 5 stars. Killer Instinct, which is the second book in the Natural series, I believe, kept me on the edge of my seat the entire time. Adore it. I'm going to move this down a little bit. Adore that book so much. I highly recommend reading the entire Natural series. It is a YA and Criminal Minds thriller series where teenagers have special abilities, and it is so good. Woman in Cabin 10, I was on the edge of my seat the whole time. That was actually my first Ruth Ware book I've ever read. Highly recommend. Highly recommend. I adored it. And everybody's going to have a different opinion on that one, but I loved it. Loved it, loved it, loved it. Ruth Ware is someone I really enjoy. This one, terrible. I just recently read this one. I was very disappointed because I loved her other book that literally I felt like nothing happened this entire book. It was just not good. Final Girls by Riley Sager, I would say it was good, but okay. This is hard because I will tell you it is thrilling, but I'm going to put it here just because I didn't love it. So I'm going to put it here. I didn't love it. I gave it 3 stars. I do think that it's thrilling, so ignore this part here for this one. I don't think it has holes, so I'm not going to put it there. I gave it a 3-star. I did enjoy it. I just think that the ending, I guessed. So in that aspect, I guess it wasn't very thrilling. This is the only book I have ever guessed who did it in any thriller ever. I've never tried to guess, and I've never guessed it, and I guessed this without trying. So I would say that aspect makes it not thrilling, I guess. First Lie Wins, loved it. Has some slow parts, but absolutely loved it. Gave it 4 stars, and this is basically she kind of has a bunch of different identities, and she's working undercover all the time where she helps steal things and just be different people to do the dirty work for some guy that she's working for. And then all of a sudden the tables turn and he starts trying to come after her. It is a good time. Okay, here's one that I'm talking about that I don't know for sure would be considered a thriller because it is more of a literary fiction. I mean, it is a literary fiction, but it also, I believe, is classified as a thriller. So it's hard to choose because I do think this is under thrillers, but it is a literary fiction. I do not think that it's thrilling, but I absolutely loved it and gave it 5 stars. So I'm going to put it here. So do not think that because I put it as not very thrilling that this book isn't incredible. I just think that this is either miscategorized or I have misread because this is just, to me, not a thriller. It's more of like a dramatic, like a drama and lit fic. And I hate lit fic, and I couldn't put this book down. I read it in like 2 days. The audiobook was really good. Survive the Night by Riley Sager. No. Actually, no. I'm not going to tell you it's not thrilling. It is, but I didn't like it because I thought the ending and the things that happened were just like who it was. I was very disappointed in, and it dropped my rating considerably. I loved this. This was actually a novella for the Naturals. So if you love the Naturals and you haven't read the novella, which is in the back of the Bad Blood book, I highly recommend it. I think it's like 200 pages or so. I ate it up. I actually loved this more than I loved Bad Blood. So definitely read this novella. It's really good. Home Before Dark. Okay. This book I have a lot of conflicting feelings for because I do think it's a good book. However, I hate books that have Ouija boards in it. That's just something I really don't like, and paranormal aspects. Now, I can't tell you, I did finish it, so I can't tell you some things because it'll spoil it. But for me, I just did not rate it because I couldn't decide on a rating. It does not mean that I didn't have a good time. It does not mean that I didn't enjoy it. I just literally had such a conflicting time deciding on a rating, so I left this book unrated. So this is a lot of people's favorite book, so take that with a grain of salt. The fact that I didn't rate it does not mean that it's not a good book. I just simply couldn't. I couldn't decide. So I will say loved it. Had some slow parts. Bad Blood. I'll say it loved it, but had some slow parts. This is my least favorite in the series, though, of the Naturals. One by One, good time, but not thrilling. It's funny. You wouldn't think like it's just like envision an old scary movie. I just thought it was funny. It was just a good time. The Teacher, no. I think this was a really good book, thrilling wise, but the content bothered me, and the ending I felt was so far fetched. I felt she just really lost me with the ending, and so it dropped my rating. The Last Time I Lied, I really enjoyed this. I would say it's a good time, but not very thrilling, in my opinion. The Inmate, I again would say is a good time, but not very thrilling, which, if you don't know me very well, Frida McFadden is an average 3-star rating for me for all of her books. I still enjoy reading them, though, because they make great palate cleansers. All In, which is the third book, I believe, in the Naturals, kept me on the edge the whole time. Love that book so much. Society of Lies, I would say good time, not very thrilling. And I did love this. I gave this 4 stars, I think. I'm not quite sure. I think it was 4 stars. Loved it. It does take some time to really get in it, though. So go into it knowing that and make sure you're paying attention. Darling Girls, no. I did finish it, but the content was not for me. This one, the Let Me Die in His Footsteps, I DNF'd. This was for a video that I have still yet to complete, and that is the only reason I tried to read that. It was so boring. I just couldn't get through it. Gone Girl, I gave 2 stars. For the simple fact that there was way too much language and it really was taking me out of the story. So when I say that too, like I know a lot of people don't like to read books with language because, you know, they just prefer that not to be in their books. For me, I don't like language in books simply because I think that it means they're not very good at writing. Not like some in it, like that's not a big deal. But if you're putting it all throughout to where it's excessive, then I feel like it takes me out of the story. In this book, I definitely was taken out of the story multiple times due to the language. It was to the point that it was distracting, and I just think it wasn't good writing. Never Lie, I would say good time, but wasn't very thrilling. But it was a good time. I did enjoy it. The Good Sister. Here's another one that is up to your interpretation. I think Sally Hepworth is classified as a thriller author, but I don't feel that she is. I think that she is psychological mystery drama, family mystery drama. So I enjoy this, but it was not very thrilling. So go into this expecting it to be more like a drama mystery. It is a good book. I just added it on there because I couldn't remember for sure if it was classified as a thriller. So The Housemaid, loved it. Kept me on the edge of my seat the entire time. Loved that book. That's my favorite Frida McFadden book that I've read to date. It is the only book of hers that I have given 4 stars. Dark Matter, I know is classified as sci-fi, but I put it on here because it is thrilling. And I consider it also a thriller, and I just want everyone to read it. It is incredible. One of my top books I read last year. Incredible. I read that, I believe, in a day as well. Local Woman Missing. I would say it was a good time, but not very thrilling. I think I gave this 2 stars. And I don't know. I think that there was just a lot of switching back and forth between perspectives. And to be honest with you, I just don't remember a lot of it. So I guess I'll put it down here because I don't remember a lot of it. I just thought it was, I don't know. it just wasn't one of the best books that I've read. Don't Look for Me. This was a long time ago, before I've read quite a bit of thriller, so I might need to do a reread to really know for sure, but I'm going to put loved it, but had slow parts. I can't remember a lot of it because it was probably 5 years ago. This is probably the oldest book I have on here that I read, but I highly recommend reading it because I remember when I read it, I loved it and I was on the edge of my seat. Last Thing He Told Me, loved it. Loved it so much. Ate that up really quickly. So there you have it. There is my list of thrillers. I actually want to also say that I think The Teacher could also be here. It had a lot of holes for me personally. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know in the comments below if you've read any of these, like which ones were your favorites. And I hope that it can give you some recommendations for some thrillers from someone who doesn't read a lot of thrillers, and that's not really my favorite genre. I hope that you were able to pick some of my favorites that I thought were just highly worth it. And until next time, guys, remember to read what inspires you. Bye, friends.